On this episode of Doing the Most, it's summertime, and so we're making the world's simplest hard seltzer. A lot of people got into homebrewing in 2020 and 21, and you may be part of that. You may be somebody who had a lot of free time and said, you know, I can make my own alcohol at home. Let me get on YouTube and figure this out. And maybe through that process, you came across our channel here at Doing the Most. I also had a lot of free time back then, but I also had been homebrewing for like 10 years at that point. So I was exploring, other avenues of creating alcoholic beverages, and I was getting into kegging at that time. And I came across an article from the Brulosophy blog about their Bru Claw Hard Seltzer. If you're not familiar with Brulosophy, they have a blog, they have a YouTube channel, and I gotta give them props. They put out a lot of interesting content doing A/B tests, triangle tests, exploring some of the myths around homebrewing. Big focus on beer, but really interesting content. And I decided to make their Bru Claw Hard Seltzer, which is basically vodka and water and brewer's best flavoring extracts, and then carbonated to a really high level and consumed. And I didn't like it. Something felt off about it, felt unbalanced. And so I tried making a hard seltzer by repurposing my citrus soda syrup recipe. It ended up kind of coming out kind of earthy and grassy in a way that wasn't like light and refreshing. I didn't love it. And I think the sweetness just wasn't there because, a hard seltzer is usually a malt-based brew, really neutral, but it's basically malt liquor that's brewed neutral and then flavor extracts are added. It's not typically super sweet. There are some really, really sweet commercial versions, but usually it's not super sweet. If it's even sweet at all, it's usually low calorie, it's light, refreshing, carbonated, and it's intended to be a low-cal, low-sugar substitute for a beer or a cider or something like that you might get that might be a little bit more filling. So I experimented with this several times and nothing worked. So I kind of shelved the project for a year. I think the thing missing from Brulosophy's recipe is acid. And I never played with acid adjustment, and I wish I had, because I think a little tartaric or phosphoric or even citric acid might have brightened up that recipe in a way that I loved. But I decided when I got back into reinventing the Bru Claw to make it my own recipe, what about Kool Aid? We don't need to add sugar to this. It has all of the flavor that you want, and it has acid in it, which helps amplify that flavor. And I kind of guessed that maybe it wouldn't really need any sugar either. But what I did think we might need is something to just add a little bit of viscosity adjustment and just a perceptible sweetness that amplifies the flavor without becoming sweet. And so I used vegetable glycerin, which I've used a number of times in meads and wines, and I actually featured it on last week's episode on this channel talking about coffee mead. For this recipe, I used quite a bit, and I think it really does help enhance this in a way that makes it not just feel like vodka water with a little bit of carbon dioxide bubbles. And so let's take a look at the recipe, and then we'll dive into the process. The recipe for this is crazy simple. It's 3 liters of vodka, 5 packages of Kool Aid Sparkleberry Fin, 3 ounces of vegetable glycerin, and water to 5 gallons. And it will also be carbonated to 2.6 volumes of CO2, up to 3 volumes if you're feeling frisky, but 2.6 is enough to make this sparkling, light, and refreshing. So as mentioned, this is a very simple recipe. Let's take a look at how it's done. We begin with our sanitized keg, and into that keg, we pour a couple gallons of our water. Next comes 3 liters of vodka. And I kind of feel like the quality of the vodka doesn't really matter because you're diluting it so much to get this to about 5.5% alcohol. Next, in goes our Kool Aid powder. This is 5 packets of Sparkleberry Fin, which is a nice fruit punchy, citrusy kind of flavor of Kool Aid. Those go right in. And then in goes 1/3 of a cup of vegetable glycerin. And the rest of our water. Once all the water is in, get that lid on, and we'll take it out to the keezer, put it on gas, purge the oxygen from the top, and then set it under 40 psi for 2 to 3 days, and then shift it to serving pressure for another 3 to 5 days, and it should be properly carbonated. Alternatively, you can set it under 40 to 50 psi, as long as you trust your keg and your connections. Leave that for an hour to 2 hours, then shake the ever-loving hell out of it for about 30 minutes to an hour, and then put it on serving pressure, leave it for an hour, do a pour, and see if your sparkle's okay. Repeat that process a few times if needed, and by the end of the day, you should have a sparkling seltzer within 24 hours of mixing everything up. That's what's crazy about this. With the high pressure and shaking method, you can have a sparkling hard seltzer that you mix up at 9 a.m. in the morning and be pouring by the time you get off work at 5 p.m. That's awesome. Now, I am a little bit lazy, so mine took about a week to get fully carbonated. And then I invited my friend David over to try it. Now, a couple things about this tasting. We're using some really cheap Bluetooth microphones that I was playing with, and we were recording outside. So the audio quality is not great. Please forgive me for that. I tried to clean it up as best I could. Secondly, David does not like hard seltzers. He is probably the biggest critic I know of hard seltzers. And so I wanted him to try this because typically when he's coming over, he's trying mead. And so I wanted to give him something that I knew was not in his flavor wheelhouse and that he thought was going to be a mead before he tried it, to just capture his genuine reaction. And so I don't want your opinion of this to be too colored by his response, because he did like it and you'll see that he liked it, but this is a guy who hates on hard seltzers. And so if even he was willing to embrace it by the end, I consider this a win. For myself, I'll tell you, I think this is great. I would probably maybe add one more Kool Aid pack if I was making it for myself. We're calling this recipe our Sparkleberry Hard Seltzer because a member of our Discord server in our members only channel had the opportunity to name it and picked a great name for it. And so that's the name of the recipe, but anyone on our Discord server can go in there and tag me and tell me what you think about this. Really, I think this is the best way to go about making a hard seltzer, but here's the tasting. You can see for yourself. David hasn't been on the channel in a while, but
good day.
He's back. We have something really unique here. And so I want you to just try it.
Okay.
And give me your quick, unfettered opinion.
That tastes like a watermelon starburst. Am I anywhere close to what's going on?
What style of drink would you say this is?
This isn't mead. It's not at all. It's like a fruity seltzer, but it's like a candy seltzer.
Okay.
Which I'm not a big fan of. This is better than generally seltzers, and I don't get along because I don't like super sweet, hardcore fake flavor sweet stuff. You know, maybe cotton candy. Am I getting close?
You're in the realm. So this is a hard seltzer.
Okay.
A keg of this recipe comes out to $25 for 5 gallons.
Wow.
So it's incredibly cost effective.
Okay. That makes it taste a little better, actually.
So there's a blog out there called Brulosophy, and he's got a recipe that he calls his Bru Claw Hard Seltzer. And it's essentially vodka, sparkling water, and some brewing flavoring extract.
Okay.
I just didn't love it. It felt unbalanced to me.
what was lacking was acid, because the brewing flavors don't have acid in them.
Raspberry.
This is a hard seltzer made with vodka and water and 5 packs of
Kool-Aid.
Sparkleberry Fin.
So I was really close.
You were darn close.
Yeah, okay.
You were darn close.
Okay, now that you say that, it does kind of remind me of like Kool-Aid.
But it's only about 120 calories per glass.
Okay.
A glass this size. Sugar-free.
Yep. Okay. I can tell that now that you said it.
But like the goal was to make an easy drinking, not super boozy, but also not like candy gross summertime drink that you can make for stupid cheap as long as you have a kegging system.
You could make this with any flavor of Kool-Aid then, right?
Yeah, presumably. Because the Kool-Aid has both the flavor and the acid that you need to balance that flavor out.
Okay.
Now, you take this and put some simple syrup in it, immediately it tastes like cough syrup.
Nope.
You cannot, at least for my palate, you cannot sweeten this. It works dry because of how the flavors are put together. So now that you know that context.
It's not bad. It just kind of threw me because, you know, this is very pink.
The whole damn neighborhood. You're hanging out at the pool.
Yeah.
Somebody hands you a can of this and says, hey, I got a
I'd be
hard
okay
seltzer.
with that.
Yeah.
My beef with hard seltzers is normally they are like unbearably sweet. Something's wrong with almost everyone. Like, I do not like White Claw, no offense, but like, I think it's gross.
A lot of the hard seltzers are malt liquor based. You get that weird other kind of flavor in there.
This tastes like Kool-Aid. Just not, it's Kool-Aid. It may be like an adult Kool-Aid. Because when you're a kid, you put like every ounce of sugar that you can into the Kool-Aid to go with it. This doesn't taste like that.
I like the light sparkle on it. I think you could ramp the sparkle up some for something that where you're literally just dumping ingredients in the keg, purging the headspace, and then carbonating it. I mean, if you did this with the shaking the keg method, you could literally mix this up at 9 a.m. in the morning and be drinking it by 5 p.m. that day.
For like $0, basically.
To put in perspective, there are about 50 to 53 pours in a 5-gallon keg. And so really we're at about 50 cents a glass or so drinking this, right?
That's not bad. I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but that almost sounds like an ultralight beer per bottle, like for a bar or a restaurant, like wholesale.
Yeah.
And that's probably about what they're paying. And you can just make it in a day.
Yeah. The cool thing about it is it's 5 packs of Kool-Aid, right? And you could probably go up to 6. You could probably put a little bit more flavor in there. But like you were saying, you could probably do this with any flavor because it's just flavor and acid. But you can also mix and match.
Yeah.
So you could do like a little bit of lemon lime, a little bit of mango or something like that. And kind of come up with flavor.
Mango would actually be pretty good, potentially. That wouldn't be bad.
I would like that I was able to take the concept that Brulosophy came up with and make it taste more like what you would expect commercially.
Right.
But also keeping the cost bare minimum.
This is adult Kool-Aid. That's what you've done here. Takes a day.
From doing the most. Until next time. Happy not brewing. Happy mixing stuff up in a keg and carbonating it.
Exactly.
Cheers.
Happy summer.
Homemade brews and various how-tos, everything from meat to roast, bake creation, fermentation, inebriation, doing the most.